Maya wiped the sweat from her forehead as she walked through the crystal forest of Kepler, 442b. The tall trees sparkled like diamonds in the morning sun, their needle-sharp leaves making soft tinkling sounds in the warm breeze. She carried her sample bag and collection tools, searching for new plant species to study. At 18 years old, she was the youngest researcher on the station, but she loved her work as a junior botanist. The research station sat in a clearing about 2 miles behind her, home to 50 human scientists who had been studying this strange world for 3 years. Maya had arrived 6 months ago, fresh from her training on Earth, excited to see alien plants for the first time. The needle trees fascinated her most of all. They grew as tall as skyscrapers back home, with bark that looked like polished metal and thorns as long as her arm. She stopped beside a particularly large tree and pulled out her scanner. The device beeped as it analyzed the chemical makeup of the tree's sap. Maya made notes in her digital pad, recording everything carefully. Dr. Patel always said that small details could lead to big discoveries. A deep roar echoed through the forest, so loud that several crystal leaves fell from the trees around her. Maya froze, her heart beating fast. She had heard that sound before in the station's educational videos. It was a Draconis rex, one of the apex predators that lived on this world. The colonists called them void dragons because they could disappear and reappear like ghosts when they hunted. Maya knew she should run back to the station immediately. The safety protocols were clear about encounters with dangerous wildlife. But the roar came again, and this time it sounded different. It was not the hunting cry she had heard in the videos. This sound was full of pain and fear. Her curiosity got the better of her training. Maya followed the sound deeper into the forest, moving carefully between the sharp crystal trees. The roaring continued, sometimes loud and angry, sometimes quieter like a whimper. As she got closer, she could hear something large thrashing around, breaking branches and scraping against tree trunks. She crept to the edge of a small clearing and saw the most incredible sight of her life. A massive dragon lay on the ground, bigger than any creature she had ever imagined. Its scales were black as space, gleaming with an oily rainbow sheen in the sunlight. 2 enormous wings spread out from its back, each one longer than her entire body. Sharp claws dug furrows in the earth as the beast writhed in obvious agony. The dragon's head was the size of a small vehicle, with intelligent amber eyes that seemed to glow from within. Its long neck curved and twisted as it tried to reach its snout with its claws, but the angle was impossible. Maya could see what was wrong immediately. A massive thorn from one of the needle trees had somehow gotten lodged deep in the creature's left nostril. The barbed spines of the thorn had hooks that would make removal nearly impossible without the right tools. Maya had studied those thorns extensively. They contained a mild toxin that caused severe inflammation in most creatures. For something as large as a Draconis rex, the poison would not be deadly, but it would be incredibly painful and would prevent the dragon from using its natural phasing abilities. The creature was trapped by its own suffering. Every instinct told Maya to back away slowly and report the injured predator to the station security team. Commander Blake would send out a team with tranquilizer weapons to sedate the dragon and remove the thorn safely. That was the proper protocol. That was the smart thing to do. But as Maya watched the magnificent creature struggle helplessly, she felt something she had never experienced before. The dragon was not just an animal in pain. Those amber eyes held intelligence, awareness, even dignity despite the suffering. Maya realized she was looking at a being, not just a beast. The dragon suddenly stopped thrashing and turned its great head toward her hiding spot, those glowing eyes fixed on hers across the clearing, and Maya felt a strange sensation in her mind, like a gentle touch against her thoughts. The creature was studying her just as carefully as she was studying it. Maya stepped out from behind the tree trunk, her hands raised to show she carried no weapons. The dragon's eyes tracked her movement, but it made no aggressive moves. Instead, it seemed to relax slightly, as if her presence brought some comfort. She walked slowly across the clearing, talking in a soft, steady voice. "Easy there, big fellow. I can see you're in a lot of pain. That thorn looks really stuck in there. I bet it hurts something terrible." The dragon's massive head lowered until it rested on the ground, bringing those amber eyes level with Maya's. She could feel warm breath washing over her, smelling of ozone and wild forests. Up close, she could see that the scales were not truly black, but contained every color imaginable, shifting and changing like oil on water. Maya knelt down just out of reach of the dragon's claws and opened her sample bag. She pulled out her finest extraction tools, designed for removing plant specimens without damage. I study plants for a living, you know. I've pulled out a lot of thorns in my time, though never one quite this big or from a nose quite this large. The dragon made a sound that was almost like a purr, a deep rumble that Maya felt in her bones. She took it as encouragement and moved closer until she was sitting right beside the creature's massive head. The dragon remained perfectly still, watching her with those incredible eyes. Maya examined the thorn carefully. It was buried deep, with multiple barbed hooks anchored in the sensitive tissue of the nostril. She would need to work slowly and carefully to avoid causing more damage. This is going to take a while, and it might hurt at first before it gets better. You'll need to trust me and stay very still. Can you do that? The dragon's response was to close its eyes and rest its head more heavily on the ground, giving Maya complete access to the injured nostril. The gesture was so trusting that Maya felt tears in her eyes. This magnificent predator was putting its life in her hands based on nothing more than her gentle voice and careful movements. Maya began the delicate work of extraction. She used her smallest tools to carefully work around the barbed hooks, applying a local anesthetic gel she carried for treating her own cuts and scrapes. The dragon never moved, never made a sound of complaint, even when Maya had to apply significant pressure to work the thorn free. It took over an hour of patient, careful work. Maya's back ached from leaning over, and her hands cramped from the precise movements required. But she never stopped. The dragon occasionally opened one amber eye to check on her progress, but otherwise remained as still as a statue. Finally, with a wet sucking sound, the massive thorn came free. It was even larger than Maya had thought, nearly 2 feet long and covered with dozens of barbed hooks. Dark blood and clear fluid followed it out, but the bleeding stopped quickly as Maya applied antiseptic to the wound. The dragon lifted its head and snorted experimentally through both nostrils. The relief in those amber eyes was unmistakable. The creature's scales began to shimmer and fade, becoming translucent as its phasing abilities returned with a reduction of inflammation. Maya sat back on her heels, exhausted but satisfied. She had done something incredible, something that would probably get her in serious trouble with Commander Blake, but she did not regret it for a second. The dragon lowered its great head again, this time pressing its snout gently against Maya's shoulder in what could only be described as gratitude. As Maya gathered her tools and prepared to head back to the station, she expected the dragon to disappear into the forest. Instead, it rose to its full height, spread its massive wings, and followed her at a respectful distance. Every few steps, Maya looked back to see those amber eyes watching her protectively. She had no idea that her simple act of kindness had just changed the course of history for 2 entire species. All Maya knew was that she had helped a magnificent creature in pain, and somehow, in return, she had gained something she never expected to find on an alien world so far from home. Maya walked slowly back toward the research station, very aware of the massive presence following her through the crystal forest. The dragon stayed about 50 feet behind, moving with surprising grace for such a large creature. Its footsteps were barely audible despite its enormous size, and occasionally Maya would turn around to find it had phased partially through a tree trunk rather than walk around it. She tried to think of what she would tell Commander Blake when she arrived at the station with a 12-foot-tall predator in tow. The security protocols were very clear about dangerous wildlife, and bringing one of the apex predators directly to their home would probably result in her immediate transfer off-world. But every time she considered trying to discourage the dragon from following her, those intelligent amber eyes would meet hers, and she found herself unable to send the creature away. The research station came into view through the trees, a collection of white dome buildings connected by covered walkways. Solar panels glinted on the roofs, and the communications array reached toward the sky like a metal flower. It was home to 50 researchers and support staff, and Maya suddenly realized she was about to disrupt their peaceful morning in a very dramatic way. As they approached the outer perimeter, the dragon stopped and settled onto its haunches, watching the buildings with obvious curiosity. Maya continued forward, hoping she could somehow explain the situation before anyone noticed her unusual companion. That hope died when the security alarm began blaring across the compound. Commander Blake's voice crackled over the public address system. All personnel, we have a code red wildlife encounter at the north perimeter. Report to emergency stations immediately. This is not a drill. Maya sighed and activated her personal communicator. Commander Blake, this is Maya. The dragon is with me, and it's not dangerous. Please don't do anything aggressive. The response was immediate and not particularly friendly. Maya, get away from that creature immediately and report to the command center. Security team, prepare to deploy sonic cannons. Maya looked back at the dragon, which had risen to its feet and was showing obvious signs of distress at the blaring alarms. Its scales were beginning to shimmer as its phasing abilities prepared for a potential threat. Please don't hurt it, she said into her communicator. It's only following me because I helped it. The dragon isn't trying to attack anyone. The sonic cannons emerged from hidden panels around the station perimeter, their dishes turning toward the dragon with mechanical precision. Maya knew the weapons were designed to drive away dangerous wildlife without permanent harm, but she also remembered reading that Draconis Rex individuals were particularly sensitive to certain sound frequencies. The first blast from the sonic cannons was deafening even to Maya, who was much smaller and farther away than the intended target. The dragon roared in pain and anger, its floor becoming completely translucent as it phased through the energy waves. But instead of fleeing, it moved protectively between Maya and the weapons, its massive wings spread wide to shield her from the sonic assault. Stop firing, Maya shouted into her communicator. You're making it angry, and it's tried to protect me, not hurt anyone. The sonic barrage continued for another 30 seconds before Commander Blake finally ordered a ceasefire. The dragon solidified again, its amber eyes now glowing with something that looked very much like indignation. It turned its great head toward Maya and made a sound that was clearly a question, as if asking why these other humans were being so unfriendly. Maya placed her hand on the dragon's snout, feeling the warm, smooth scales under her palm. I know they're scared. They don't understand that you're trying to help. She activated her communicator again. Commander, I'm coming in to explain, and the dragon is coming with me. Please don't fire the cannons again. The walk to the command center was surreal. Maya strode across the compound with a massive dragon, following her like an enormous pet, while frightened researchers peered out of windows and doorways. The dragon seemed fascinated by the human architecture, occasionally reaching out with one careful claw to touch a building wall or examine a piece of equipment. Commander Blake was waiting outside the command center with a full security team, all of them armed with neural disruptors. He was a tall, stern man in his 50s who had been running frontier research stations for most of his career. Maya had always found him fair, but inflexible when it came to safety protocols. Maya, step away from that creature immediately, Blake ordered. We don't know what it's capable of or why it's fixated on you. The dragon lowered its head to Maya's level and made a soft rumbling sound that vibrated through her chest. She felt an odd sensation in her mind, like a warm presence touching her thoughts gently. Somehow, she understood that the dragon was trying to communicate, trying to show her that it meant no harm to her or her people. It's not fixated on me, Commander, Maya said, surprising herself at how confident she sounded. We formed some kind of bond. I removed a thorn from its nostril this morning, and I think it's trying to repay the kindness. Dr. Patel emerged from the crowd of researchers, his dark eyes bright with scientific curiosity. He was the station's xenobiologist and one of the few people Maya trusted to approach the situation with an open mind. Commander, if I may suggest, this could be an incredible opportunity to study Draconis Rex behavior up close. We've never had a peaceful contact with one of these creatures before. Blake's expression remained skeptical. Dr. Patel, that thing could kill half the station before we could stop it. I'm not willing to risk lives for research, no matter how valuable. The dragon seemed to sense the tension in the group. It moved closer to Maya, positioning itself so that its body created a barrier between her and the armed security team. The gesture was clearly protective, and Maya felt that warm presence in her mind again. Stronger this time. The dragon was not just protecting her physically. It was trying to share its emotions with her, to make her understand the depth of its gratitude and loyalty. Dr. Patel stepped forward carefully. His hands raised to show he carried no weapons. "May I examine it, Maya?" "I promise to be very careful." Maya looked up at the dragon's amber eyes and somehow knew the creature understood the question. The dragon lowered its great head and allowed Dr. Patel to approach, though its attention never strayed from Maya for more than a few seconds. The xenobiologist ran his scanner over the dragon's scales, his excitement growing with each reading. "Remarkable. Its neural activity is off the charts. Commander, this creature is showing problem-solving intelligence comparable to dolphins or great apes. And these readings suggest some kind of empathic capability." As if to demonstrate Dr. Patel's point, the dragon suddenly raised its head and looked toward the eastern edge of the compound. Its scales began to shimmer with agitation, and it made a low warning sound deep in its throat. Maya felt a flash of danger through their strained connection, though she could not identify the source. The security team raised their weapons, but the dragon ignored them completely. It spread its massive wings and launched itself into the air with surprising speed, disappearing over the tree line in the direction of its attention. Maya felt a pang of loss as their connection stretched and faded with distance. "Where is it going?" Commander Blake demanded, as if Maya had some special insight into dragon behavior. The answer came 5 minutes later when the dragon returned, carrying the limp form of a shadow stalker in its claws. The smaller predator was about the size of a large wolf, with midnight black fur and rows of needle-sharp teeth. Shadow stalkers were pack hunters that occasionally threatened the research station, and this one had clearly been scouting the perimeter for weaknesses. The dragon dropped the unconscious predator at Blake's feet and looked at Maya with what she could only interpret as pride. It had detected a threat to her home and dealt with it efficiently, demonstrating both its protective instincts and its value as an ally. Dr. Patel was practically vibrating with excitement. "Commander, this behavior is unprecedented. The creature has identified threats to our community and taken action to eliminate them. It's not just bonded to Maya. It's accepted our entire group as part of its territory to defend." Blake stared at the unconscious shadow stalker, then at the dragon, then at Maya. She could see him wrestling with his training, his responsibilities, and the undeniable evidence before his eyes. "This goes against every safety protocol in the book," he said finally. Maya stepped forward, feeling more confident with each passing moment. "Sometimes the book doesn't have all the answers. Commander, this dragon saved my life by letting me help it, and now it's trying to save all our lives by protecting the station. Maybe we should listen to what it's trying to tell us." The dragon made that soft rumbling sound again, and Maya felt his contentment wash over her like warm sunshine. She reached up to touch its snout, and the creature leaned into her touch with obvious pleasure. Around them, the circle of researchers and security personnel watched in amazement as the most dangerous predator on the planet behaved like a giant, scaly dog seeking affection from its favorite human. Commander Blake holstered his weapon with obvious reluctance. "Against my better judgment, we'll try a supervised coexistence trial. But Maya, you're now responsible for this creature's behavior. If it shows any signs of aggression toward station personnel, it gets relocated immediately, regardless of any bond you think you formed." Maya nodded eagerly, though she suspected that relocating a 12-foot dragon that could phase through solid matter might be easier said than done. The dragon seemed to understand the conversation and settled down beside the command center, folding its wings and regarding the assembled humans with patient, intelligent eyes. Dr. Patel was already making plans for behavioral studies and communication experiments. The security team was discussing modified patrol patterns and threat assessment protocols. Commander Blake was probably wondering how he would explain the situation in his next report to Earth Command, but Maya just stood beside her unlikely guardian, feeling the warm glow of their mental connection, and marveled at how quickly her life had changed. This morning she had been a junior botanist collecting plant samples. Now she was apparently the first human to form a partnership with one of the galaxy's most magnificent predators, and something told her this was only the beginning of their adventure together. 6 months had passed since Maya first helped the dragon she now called Rex. The massive creature had become a familiar sight around the research station, often found resting in the shade of the main building or flying lazy circles over the crystal forest. The other researchers had grown comfortable with Rex's presence, and some even brought him treats of fresh fish from a nearby lake. Maya had learned to communicate with Rex through a combination of hand gestures, simple sounds, and the strange mental connection they shared. She could feel his emotions as clearly as her own, and sometimes she sensed that he understood her thoughts even before she spoke them aloud. Dr. Patel documented everything, fascinated by what he called an empathic bond between species. The peaceful routine of station life was shattered one morning when the long-range sensors detected incoming ships. Commander Blake called an emergency meeting in the main conference room, his face grim as he activated the holographic display. 5 sleek warships hung in space above Kepler, 442b, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. The ships are hegemony design, Blake announced to the assembled researchers. Long-range scans identify them as military vessels from the Sword Fleet. They're requesting permission to land and speak with our station commander. Maya felt a chill run through her body that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Everyone in human space knew about the hegemony, a military alliance of 4 alien species that claimed large portions of the galaxy as their territory. The Swords were reptilian warriors known for their aggressive expansion policies and complete disregard for the rights of smaller civilizations. Dr. Patel raised his hand nervously. "Commander, I thought this system was unclaimed territory when we established the research station. Our permits were approved by the Colonial Authority 3 years ago." Blake nodded grimly. They were, but apparently the hegemony has decided to expand their territorial claims. The lead ship is requesting a meeting within the hour. I don't think we have much choice but to hear what they have to say. Maya excused herself from the meeting and went outside to find Rex. The dragon was resting beside the communications array, but he raised his great head as soon as she appeared. Through their bond, she could feel his awareness of her distress even before she reached him. "We might have trouble coming, Rex," she said softly, placing her hand on his warm scales. "Some very unfriendly aliens want to take our home away from us." Rex made a low rumbling sound and pressed his snout against her shoulder in comfort. Maya felt his fierce protective instincts flare through their connection, along with something else that surprised her. Rex was not afraid of the ships in the sky. If anything, he seemed angry about their presence, as if they represented something he had encountered before. The hegemony shuttle landed an hour later in the station's main courtyard, its engines kicking up clouds of dust and scattered crystal leaves. The craft was sleek and predatory-looking, painted in the dark green and gold colors of the Sword military. As the landing ramp lowered, 6 armored figures emerged, their movements sharp and precise. The leader was obviously Sword, standing nearly 7 feet tall with green-scaled skin and cold yellow eyes. His uniform bore the insignia of a fleet captain, and a ceremonial sword hung at his side. Behind him came 2 more Swords and 3 members of other hegemony species that Maya recognized from her xenobiology studies. Commander Blake met them in the courtyard with a small diplomatic party, including Dr. Patel and the station's senior staff. Maya watched from the observation deck of the main building, with Rex crouched beside her like a giant watchdog. She could feel his tension growing as he studied the alien visitors. "I am Captain Vex of the Sword 4th Fleet," the leader announced in heavily accented but clear human standard. "By order of the Hegemony Council, this world and its system are now claimed as hegemony territory under the right of strategic expansion. All human personnel must evacuate within 72 hours. Blake stepped forward, his diplomatic training evident in his calm response. "Captain Vex, this system was unclaimed when we established our research station 3 years ago. We have legal permits from the Human Colonial Authority and have made significant scientific investments here. Surely we can reach some accommodation." Captain Vex's yellow eyes showed no warmth or flexibility. "The hegemony recognizes no human authority beyond your own borders. Commander, this world contains strategic resources that our alliance requires. Your presence here is now illegal under hegemony law. You have 72 hours to gather your research and depart, or we will consider you hostile occupiers." Dr. Patel spoke up carefully. "Captain, we're peaceful researchers studying the local ecosystem. We've made important discoveries about the native species that could benefit scientific understanding throughout the galaxy. Perhaps we could share our findings and work together." The Sword Captain's expression grew even colder. "We have no interest in your research, especially regarding the local predators. The hegemony conducted pest control operations in the system 40 years ago to clear the way for future development. Any surviving specimens will be eliminated when we begin resource extraction." Maya felt Rex's reaction through their bond like a physical blow. Rage and grief washed over her as the dragon understood what the captain was saying. The hegemony had not just claimed this world. They had deliberately hunted Rex's people nearly to extinction decades ago. The scattered, lonely existence of the surviving dragons was not natural. It was a result of systematic extermination. Through the observation window, Maya saw Rex's scales beginning to shimmer as his phasing abilities activated involuntarily. His great claws dug furrows in the metal decking, and a low growl rumbled from deep in his chest. She placed both hands on his neck, trying to calm him before his anger drew the attention of the hegemony soldiers below. "Commander Blake," Captain Vex continued, "your evacuation deadline is non-negotiable. The nearest human military response is weeks away, and you have no weapons capable of challenging hegemony fleet vessels. I suggest you begin packing immediately." Blake's jaw tightened, but he maintained his diplomatic composure. "Captain, we have families here, children who have made this world their home. We have 3 years of research data and equipment that cannot be easily transported. 72 hours is not enough time for a complete evacuation." "That is not my concern," Vex replied coldly. "The hegemony's needs supersede human comfort. You may take essential personnel and basic research materials. Everything else becomes property of the hegemony as compensation for your illegal occupation." Maya felt sick as she listened to the conversation. These aliens were treating her home and her friends like obstacles to be removed, showing no more consideration than they would for a clearing brush from a construction site. Through her bond with Rex, she sensed that this was exactly how the hegemony had treated his people 40 years ago, as pests to be exterminated for convenience. The diplomatic meeting ended with Captain Vex returning to his shuttle and Commander Blake calling another emergency assembly. Maya remained on the observation deck with Rex, both of them processing what they had just witnessed. The dragon's emotional state was a storm of anger, grief, and something else that Maya was slowly beginning to recognize as determination. "They killed your family, didn't they?" Maya asked softly. "That's why there are so few of you left. That's why you were all alone in the forest." Rex turned his great amber eyes toward her, and through their connection she felt the full weight of his loss. Images flashed through her mind, not her own memories, but Rex's. She saw other dragons, a great community of his people living in harmony with the crystal forests. She saw hegemony ships raining death in the sky, and young dragons crying out as their parents fell to alien weapons. But along with the grief, Maya sensed something else growing in Rex's mind. He was remembering things he had forgotten, connections to others of his kind that had been dormant for decades. Through the empathic abilities that all dragons possessed, Rex had always been dimly aware of other survivors scattered across the planet. The trauma of the hegemony attack had broken their community bonds, leaving each dragon isolated and afraid to reach out to the others. "Rex," Maya said slowly, an impossible idea began to form in her mind. "How many others are there? How many of your people survived?" The dragon lifted his great head and made a sound Maya had never heard before, a deep, haunting call that echoed across the crystal forest and beyond. It was not just a roar or a growl, but something more complex, almost musical. Maya felt the sound resonate through her bones and her soul, carry emotions and meanings that human language could never express. As the call faded, Rex looked at Maya with eyes that seemed to glow with new purpose. Through their bond, she felt his determination crystallizing into something that might have terrified her if she had not understood its source. Rex was not just her guardian anymore. He was remembering what it meant to be a protector of this world, and he was calling to others who had forgotten the same thing. In the distance, barely audible over the sound of the research station, Maya thought she heard an answering call. Then another, from a different direction. Rex's amber eyes blazed with satisfaction as he settled down beside her, his massive presence radiating patience and growing strength. Maya looked up at the hegemony ships hanging in the sky like dark omens and felt her own determination hardening to match Rex's. Captain Vex had made a serious mistake in his arrogant dismissal of this world's native guardians. The sordid captain thought he was dealing with helpless human researchers and extinct predators. He was about to learn how wrong he could be. The first dragon arrived at dawn on the second day. Maya was drinking her morning coffee on the observation deck when a shadow passed over the research station, larger than any of the local flying creatures. She looked up to see a magnificent dragon gliding between the crystal trees, its scales a deep emerald green that caught the early sunlight like precious stones. Rex lifted his great head from where he had been resting and made a welcoming sound deep in his throat. The new dragon landed gracefully in the clearing beside the station, folding wings that were even larger than Rex's. Through her bond with Rex, Maya felt his joy at reconnecting with one of his own kind, mixed with sadness for all the years they had been apart. Dr. Patel came running with his scanner and recording equipment, his excitement barely contained. "Maya, this is incredible. The newcomer is showing the same empathic resonance patterns as Rex, but with subtle differences. I think we're seeing individual personality traits in the neural readings." The green dragon approached Rex cautiously, and the two magnificent creatures touched snouts in what was clearly a greeting ritual. Maya felt a brief flutter of new emotions through her connection with Rex, memories and feelings that belonged to the other dragon, shared through their natural empathic abilities. The green dragon was female, and her name in their musical language translated roughly to swift wind. By noon, two more dragons had arrived. One was smaller than Rex, but with scales that shifted color like rainbow oil, and another was massive even by dragon standards, with silver-white scales that gleamed like polished metal. Each arrival brought the same cautious greeting ritual, followed by what Maya was beginning to recognize as a sharing of memories and experiences from their long years of isolation. Commander Blake watched the growing gathering with obvious nervousness. "Maya, I count 4 apex predators now, each one capable of destroying our entire station if they chose to. Are you absolutely certain they're all as peaceful as Rex?" Maya placed her hand on Rex's warm scales and felt the emotional state of the entire group through their shared empathic network. "They're not here to hurt us, Commander. They're here because Rex called them, and Rex called them because he knows we need help." The dragon seemed to understand that the humans were in danger, though Maya was not sure how much of the political situation they could grasp. What they did understand, with perfect clarity, was that the flying ships in the sky represented the same threat that had scattered their people 40 years ago. Through Rex, Maya felt their growing determination to prevent another tragedy. Dr. Patel was documenting everything with scientific enthusiasm. The empathic network they're forming is unlike anything in the literature. Each dragon maintains its individual personality, but they're sharing memories and tactical information instantaneously. It's like watching the formation of a group mind, but one that preserves personal identity. More dragons continued to arrive throughout the day. Maya counted 12 by evening, then 15 by the time she went to bed. Some were as large as Rex, others were smaller and more agile-looking. Their scales displayed every color imaginable: deep blues that reminded her of Earth's oceans, rich purples like royal velvet, and one magnificent specimen with scales that seemed to contain actual starlight. The dragons arranged themselves around the research station in a loose defensive perimeter, not threatening but clearly protective. Maya discovered that her bond with Rex now allowed her to sense the emotional states of the entire group, like listening to a complex musical harmony where each voice contributed to the whole. On the morning of the third day, with less than 24 hours remaining until the hegemony deadline, Maya counted 37 dragons gathered around the station. The sight was breathtaking and terrifying at the same time. She had gone from being a junior botanist to somehow becoming the liaison between humanity and what appeared to be the entire surviving population of one of the galaxy's most magnificent species. Rex brought her to meet the largest of the newly arrived dragons, a massive ancient female whose scales were deep gold touched with copper highlights. Through Rex's translation, Maya learned that this was the eldest of survivors, the keeper of their people's memories and traditions. Her name meant something like deep memory in their musical language. Deep memory studied Maya with eyes that held the wisdom of centuries, and Maya felt the dragon's mind gently touching hers through the empathic network. What she experienced was overwhelming. Flashes of dragon civilization at its height, with great cities built into crystalline mountainsides and dragons working in harmony with the planet's natural systems. She saw the horror of the hegemony attack, the desperate flight of survivors, and the long, lonely years that followed. But she also felt something else flowing through deep memory's ancient consciousness. Hope. The old dragon had lived through the worst her people had ever faced, and she recognized in Maya and Rex's partnership something that had been lost for 40 years. The humans were not conquerors or exploiters like the hegemony. They were potential allies, beings capable of the same cooperation and mutual respect that dragons had once shared with other species. Through Rex, deep memory communicated a startling revelation to Maya. The dragons were not simply apex predators, as the human researchers had assumed. They were the planet's guardians, evolved specifically to maintain the delicate balance of Kepler 442b's unique ecosystem. Their empathic abilities, their phasing powers, and their intelligence had all developed to help them protect the world they call home. The crystal forests, the unique mineral formations, even the complex weather patterns, all were part of an interconnected system that the dragons had tended for thousands of years. The hegemony's resource extraction would not just destroy beautiful landscapes. It would collapse an entire planetary biosphere that had taken millennia to develop. Maya felt the weight of this knowledge settling on her shoulders like a mantle of responsibility. She was not just helping Rex anymore, or even protecting the research station. She had somehow become the bridge between two species that needed each other's help to survive. Dr. Patel found her that evening sitting beside Rex in the main clearing, surrounded by dozens of dragons in a scene that looked like something from an ancient fairy tale. Maya, the dragon's arrival seems to have accelerated throughout the day. My reading suggests they're using some form of long-range empathic communication to coordinate their gathering. How many do you think will come? Maya consulted the emotional network she shared with Rex and felt her breath catch. All of them, Dr. Patel. Every dragon that survived the hegemony attack 40 years ago is coming here. Rex estimates there are maybe 50 or 60 left on the entire planet. The xenobiologist's eyes widened as he grasped the significance. Maya, you're witnessing the reconstitution of an entire species' social structure. This gathering represents the first time in 4 decades that the surviving dragons have come together as a community. The scientific implications are staggering. As if summoned by their conversation, Commander Blake approached the clearing with obvious reluctance. The sight of nearly 40 apex predators in one location was clearly testing his nerves, despite their peaceful behavior. Maya, I've been monitoring hegemony communications. Their deadline is in 18 hours, and Captain Vex has made it clear that they consider resistance futile. I need to know, what exactly are you and these dragons planning to do? Maya looked around at the gathered dragons, feeling their collective determination through the empathic network. Each magnificent creature represented decades of survival against impossible odds, and now they were united again by a common threat and a shared hope. We're going to protect our home. Commander, all of us together. Blake's expression grew more troubled. Maya, I understand your attachment to this place and to Rex, but we're talking about military warships with orbital bombardment capabilities. These dragons, magnificent as they are, can't stand against that kind of firepower. Rex lifted his great head and looked directly at Commander Blake, and Maya felt the dragon's response flowing through their bond. What Rex communicated was not arrogance or false bravado, but the quiet confidence of someone who understood capabilities that the humans had never witnessed. Commander, Maya said slowly, I don't think you realize what we're dealing with here. These dragons aren't just large animals with unusual abilities. They're the rightful guardians of this world, and they have been protecting it successfully for thousands of years. The hegemony may have scattered them before, but they've never faced a united dragon community fighting to defend their home. Through the empathic network, Maya felt the dragon's ancient knowledge awakening. Tactical information that had been preserved in deep memory's consciousness was being shared among the entire group. Strategies and abilities that had been dormant for decades were being remembered and refined. The dragons were not just gathering randomly. They were preparing for war. As night fell over the research station, Maya stood in the center of a circle of 43 dragons, each one looking at her with eyes that reflected starlight and ancient wisdom. Through Rex, she felt their collective question, and she understood that they were waiting for her decision. She had become more than their human friend or Rex's partner. She had become their war leader, the one who would decide when and how to act. Maya looked up at the hegemony ships hanging in the dark sky like malevolent stars, then back at the magnificent creatures surrounding her. "Tomorrow," she said simply, knowing that Rex would translate her words into the musical language all dragons understood. "Tomorrow we show them what happens when you threaten a world that has guardians who remember how to fight." The dragon's response was a harmony of voices that echoed across the crystal forest and beyond, a song of defiance and determination that spoke of battles yet to come and a world that would not surrender without a fight. The morning of the final day dawned clear and bright over Kepler, 442b, with the hegemony ships hanging in the sky like dark promises of destruction. Maya stood on the observation deck of the research station, watching 43 dragons arrange themselves across the crystal forest in formations that spoke of ancient military wisdom. Through her bond with Rex, she could feel the collective heartbeat of an entire species preparing to fight for their home. Commander Blake had spent the night trying to establish emergency communication with Earth Command, but the nearest human fleet was still weeks away. The research station's defensive capabilities consisted of nothing more powerful than the sonic cannons that had proven useless against Rex months ago. By every rational measure, they were completely outmatched by the hegemony force waiting above them. Dr. Patel approached Maya with his scanner and recording equipment, his scientific excitement barely contained despite the danger. "Maya, the empathic resonance readings from the Dragon Network are off the charts. They're coordinating at a level that suggests true collective intelligence while maintaining individual consciousness. Whatever they're planning, it's being orchestrated with military precision that rivals any advanced species I've studied." Maya nodded, feeling the truth of his words through her connection to Rex. The dragons were not operating as individual predators anymore, but as a unified force with deep memory serving as their strategic coordinator and Rex as their primary link to the human community. Each dragon knew exactly where to position itself and what role to play in the coming battle. The hegemony deadline arrived at noon with the appearance of 12 dropships launching from the main fleet. Captain Vex's voice crackled over the communication system with cold finality. "Commander Blake, your evacuation time has expired. Our forces are now landing to take possession of this facility and its resources. Any resistance will be met with lethal force." Maya felt Rex's response through their bond before she saw him move. The great dragon launched himself in the air from his position near the station, his massive wings carrying him toward the incoming dropships with deadly purpose. Around the forest, 42 other dragons took flight simultaneously, their coordinated movement creating a sound like thunder rolling across the landscape. The first dropship never reached ground. Rex phased through its hull like a ghost, his claws finding critical systems with surgical precision. The ship began spinning out of control, its engines failing as electrical systems overloaded from the dragon's interference. Rex emerged from the opposite side of the craft just as it crashed into a clearing, the impact hard enough to disable the ship but not kill its occupants. The other dragons struck the remaining dropships with similar tactics, using their phasing abilities to bypass shields and armor completely. Maya watched in amazement as Swift Wind, the green-scale female, passed through 3 ships in rapid succession, each one losing power and making emergency landings throughout the crystal forest. The dragons were not killing the hegemony soldiers, but they were certainly making sure those soldiers would not be going anywhere soon. Captain Vex's furious voice erupted from the communication system. "All ships, engage the native predators with maximum firepower. These creatures are more dangerous than our intelligence suggested." The sky above the research station erupted with energy beams and projectile weapons as the hegemony fleet opened fire on the dragons. Maya held her breath, waiting for the inevitable casualties, but the dragons seemed to dance between the attacks with impossible grace. Their phasing abilities allowed them to become intangible at will, causing energy beams to pass harmlessly through their bodies while they maneuvered for counterstrikes. Deep Memory, the ancient golden dragon, led a group of the largest dragons in a direct assault on the lowest flying hegemony warship. Maya felt the old dragon's determination through the empathic network as she and her companions phased directly through the ship's hull. The warship's lights flickered and died as its power systems overloaded, and Maya realized the dragons were not just phasing through the ships, but somehow disrupting their electrical systems in the process. Dr. Patel was recording everything with shaking hands. "Maya, they're using their phasing abilities as an electromagnetic weapon. When they become intangible, they're creating localized disruptions in the quantum field that interfere with electronic systems. It's the most sophisticated application of exotic physics I've ever witnessed. Rex returned to the station carrying something in his claws that made Maya's blood run cold. It was a hegemony communication device, probably torn from one of the disabled dropships. Through their bond, she understood what he intended, and she felt both pride and terror at his tactical thinking. Maya took the alien communicator from Rex's gentle grasp and activated it with trembling fingers. Captain Vex's angry voice filled the device immediately. Identify yourself. How did you acquire hegemony military equipment? This is Maya, speaking for the research station and the guardians of this world, she said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. Your dropships have been neutralized, and your fleet is taking damage from defenders you clearly don't understand. I'm offering you one chance to withdraw peacefully. Vex's laughter was harsh and contemptuous. One human child and a pack of oversized lizards think they can challenge the hegemony fleet? You have no idea what you're facing. Neither do you, Maya replied, looking up at Rex's amber eyes that blazed with protective fury. These aren't just predators, Captain. They're the rightful guardians of this world, and you made the mistake of threatening their home. As if summoned by her words, the dragons launched their most coordinated attack yet. Instead of striking individually, all 43 dragons moved together in a complex aerial formation that Maya felt rather than saw through the empathic network. They approached the main hegemony battleship from multiple angles, their phasing abilities synchronized to create what Dr. Patel later described as a cascading quantum disruption field. The massive warship's lights went out in sections as the dragons passed through its hull like ghosts carrying lightning. Maya felt each dragon's contribution to the attack through Rex's consciousness, some disrupting power systems, others interfering with weapons arrays, and still others targeting the ship's communication and navigation equipment. Within minutes, the pride of the Sora fleet was drifting powerless in orbit, its crew trapped aboard a vessel that had become little more than an expensive metal shell. Captain Vex's voice over the communicator had lost its arrogant confidence. What are those creatures? Our weapons are useless against them, and they're tearing our ships apart from the inside. They're what your people tried to exterminate 40 years ago, Maya said, feeling the weight of deep memory's ancient grief through the empathic network. They're the guardians you scattered and tried to destroy, so you could strip mine their world. But they survived, Captain, and now they're united again. The remaining hegemony ships were falling back to higher orbit as more dragons reached them, but Maya could see through Rex's eyes that the battle was far from over. Captain Vex still had orbital bombardment capabilities, and his desperation was making him increasingly dangerous. Commander Blake, Vex's voice crackled over the station's communication system. I'm ordering you to call off these creatures immediately, or I'll glass your entire settlement from orbit. You have 60 seconds to comply. Maya felt Rex's instant response through their bond. Not fear, but determination mixed with something that felt almost like anticipation. Through the empathic network, she sensed the dragons repositioning themselves in the sky above the research station, no longer attacking the ships, but forming a defensive formation unlike anything she had ever imagined. He's bluffing, Commander Blake said, but his voice lacked conviction. Orbital bombardment would destroy the resources they came here to claim. No, Maya said quietly, understanding flowing through her connection with Rex and the gathered dragons. He's not bluffing, but it doesn't matter. The first orbital bombardment beam lands down from space, like a pillar of white fire, aimed directly at the research station's main building. Maya closed her eyes and felt Rex's love and protection washing over her through their bond, along with the combined determination of 43 dragons who had found something worth defending again. When she opened her eyes, the bombardment beam was gone, scattered into harmless light by something she could barely comprehend. The dragons had linked their phasing abilities together, creating a field of disrupted quantum space above the station that turned the most powerful weapons in the hegemony arsenal into nothing more than a light show. Captain Vex tried 3 more bombardment attempts, each one failing as spectacularly as the first. Maya could hear the panic creeping into his voice over the communicator as he realized that his most devastating weapons were completely useless against an enemy that could simply choose not to exist in the same reality as his attacks. "This is impossible," Vex transmitted, his professional composure finally cracking. "Our intelligence report said the native predators were extinct. These creatures are using technologies beyond our understanding." "They're not using technology, Captain," Maya said, stroking Rex's warm scales as the great dragon settled beside her. "They're using something your people never learned to value: unity, cooperation, and the absolute determination to protect what they love." The final phase of the battle was less a fight than a demonstration. The dragon systematically disabled every remaining hegemony vessel, leaving the fleet powerless and drifting in orbit. Not a single alien soldier was killed, but their capacity to threaten Kepler 442b was completely eliminated. Captain Vex's final transmission came hours later, his voice thick with defeat and grudging respect. "Commander Blake, the hegemony fleet is withdrawing from this system. We'll be sending a diplomatic vessel to negotiate new territorial boundaries within the month. It seems we underestimated both your species and the native guardians." As the hegemony ships limped away into hyperspace, Maya stood in the research station's courtyard surrounded by 43 magnificent dragons, each one looking at her with eyes that reflected ancient wisdom and newfound hope. Through Rex, she felt their collective gratitude and their determination to never again let their world be threatened by those who exploit it. Dr. Patel was practically vibrating with excitement as he recorded the aftermath. "Maya, you've just documented the first successful defense of a human colony by indigenous aliens acting as allies. The xenobiological and political implications will reshape how humanity approaches interstellar relations." Commander Blake approached Rex cautiously, his expression mixing awe with professional respect. "I owe you an apology, Maya. And you too, Rex. You've saved not just our research station, but possibly prevented a war between humanity and the hegemony." Maya smiled as Rex lowered his great head to nuzzle her shoulder gently. Through their bond, she felt his contentment and the pride of a guardian who had successfully protected his chosen family. Around them, the other dragons were settling back into the crystal forest, but she knew they would never again be scattered and alone. The research station would become something new now, not just a place where humans studied an alien world, but a symbol of cooperation between species that had found common ground in mutual respect and shared protection. As Maya watched young dragons learning to work alongside human researchers, she realized that her simple act of removing a thorn had grown into something that would change the galaxy forever.